I've already served. I have zippers down my legs from the scars that I've served. And you're telling me that I don't, that's what the DA said to me, that I don't know what service is. She literally said that to me. And I had a bit of a mental breakdown at that point, because it was like, it's for nothing. All of this is for nothing.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Larry Semenigos. This is Texas Insider. Today we have Kimberly Moyers with us. She will tell us our story. Hello, Kimberly.
Hi.
So tell me about yourself.
I am a native Texan. I grew up near Alvin, Texas, and I joined the military. I joined the Navy back in 2010, and had a good go. I was an aviation technician, electrician, worked on several varieties of helicopters because we were transitioning helicopters from what we call digital, or from analog to digital. So that was a pretty fun experience, but I got injured while I was in, and then I was medically retired out.
Well, so they gave you a DD-214. Did it have like a special category code before you left the Navy?
I would say my only thing was a TIMDO discharge, which is a temporary duty on a discharge, was on my DD-214.
So they gave you 6 months like to recover before they actually discharge you, or to actually evaluate situation?
So it basically would be discharged, and I had a certain amount of time to get fixed, and then I could possibly come back in. So it was a temporary, like, limited duty. But that popped me into the VA wait time scandal.
Right.
So
It's an isolated situation. Not many know about the retirement. The only people that actually know about your situation would be people that are retiring, people that are being discharged, and people that are coming into the military.
Yes.
So it would be the military community that will be the only ones that will know your situation. So you're not getting a lot of social media attention for that reason, because the civilians don't know about the situation.
No, they don't. Basically, what I have to tell civilians is that when you get injured and you are unable to complete your time of service due to that injury, they just medically retire you, and they still compensate you for that time served, as if you were up to 20 years service.
So how did this situation start, and how was the former Veterans Administration office working with you during this time?
Each VA actually runs different. They have a vision district. Here in Houston, our district starts, like around the Houston area, and it goes all the way to Pensacola. So when I got out, my husband was still into the military. So I had very good care from the people and the staff in San Diego. However, I was put right out during that wait time scandal, and everything was backlogged. You couldn't get appointments. It took years. So I was in a wheelchair, and I had to wait a year in and out of a wheelchair to get my first surgery appointment, just to see a surgeon. And then it took 6 months after that to have my first surgery. And my injuries were so extreme in my legs, my feet were hanging off my actual legs. And it was very painful. That was also during the opioid crisis that the VA instigated, because they would just give me pills. Like, they would give me 90 Vicodin, and they'd say, here you go. And I hadn't been this severely injured in my life, so I did not know the medication that I was getting. And what they kept doing is throwing pills at you, and like it was a Band-Aid for the problem. And then it started fueling the opioid crisis in our country. I had my dad and my family step in, and they had to educate me on what opiates were, so I had to come off of them. And that was rough, because I was like, I don't want to be a drug addict. Right. But I can see how they can make that happen. So when that happens, My husband finally got his discharge out, and then we came here to Texas, and the day and night difference here in Houston versus San Diego. If you go to Michael E. DeBakey, they're still stuck in the 90s on a lot of their equipment. And I could not understand when I was in San Diego, we had water therapy, stuff to help me get me going with my legs. When I get back here, I had nothing. I had no physical therapy because I never had physical therapy after my surgeries. The files wouldn't transfer from all the care over there. I had something wrong with my shoulder. And when the shoulder, they sit there and they have this like list inside the VA of you have to meet these check boxes. Well, if you don't fall in that category of checkbox system, what are you to do? They just ignore you. I had a tumor because of the severe injury, and it grew to the size of a baseball, and the VA took 7 years to address it. There was a lot of gaslighting, and the fact that it's in your mind, that it's a mental health issue, and that it's causing you pain. Let's deal with your mental health issues. And I'm just sitting there, no, it really, really hurts, and it's not working. And then I lost the actual whole use of my arm, and they're still telling me it's a mental thing. And I'm like, no, it's just swinging at that point. And then Brian Talley passed the Talley bill, right, which made a huge difference with us. And then Mission Act went. And when Brian Talley's bill totally changed my life, because I finally got a diagnosis, and I saw this huge tumor in my arm that was almost the size of a baseball. And when Mission Act passed, and that was President Trump, straight up, and that was amazing. I got the second, best ortho surgeon here in Houston. Great care, care that I've never experienced before, and I was so thankful. I would say here in Houston, I actually did have good care in San Diego. I loved my doctor, Dr. Chang and Dr. Biddleman. Amazing doctors. But they were always stressed, poor guys. But then COVID-19 happened, and it was, they canceled my physical therapy. And so because everyone was like, oh, well, you can't be in proximity of certain people, 6 feet distance. So they canceled all the community care appointments for our safety. Because they canceled that appointment, I never got my follow-up for my arm. I never got any more physical therapy. And they're like, you're good. And now that doctor's no longer in network, because this Secretary of VA has said on multiple occasions that he is against the privatization of the Department of Veteran Affairs. They canceled 19.7 million appointments, and that's from Concerned Veterans for America. They didn't follow up with the majority of those appointments. If you look back, there was a person up in the Woodlands, an amazing veteran, who just had a gallbladder or issue, and he died because the VA wouldn't get him in. During the pandemic, they shut down the VA for us, but then they treated civilians. That was a big, big problem. And in my situation, I got pregnant and lost 4 children before this due to stress, injuries, lots of medication. And I went to the VA, and they gave me a porta potty. That's it. That's all I got, was a porta potty for a baby. During that time, Congresswoman Brownlee and Lizzie Fletcher were on the move here in Houston to push women's comprehensive care, which was abortion, inside the Department of Veteran Affairs. I had spoken to Congressman Jody Arrington about this issue, and he said he couldn't do anything, and still forwarded me to Lizzie Fletcher. Lizzie Fletcher called me, and she says, oh, yes, we're doing everything we can to make sure that women get the care. I mean, I've got the phone logs, records, everything. And she had a women's town hall here in Houston with Baker Ripley, and every single female veteran was gagged. We weren't allowed to speak or ask questions. We got that all on video.
Before we go further, why did it, what's with this situation with Liz, is that her name?
Lizzie Fletcher,
Lizzie Fletcher's Congresswoman, and why did they gag all the...
That's very normal, and that's actually part of the whole disruptive behavior committee. The VA cannot listen to issues that aren't good. You know, they praise themselves for finally putting baby changing stations in the VA last year. And I'm like, dude, that was done in the 90s. I would be pretty embarrassed about that on the side of women's care. In case you didn't know, there is no labor and delivery at any VA, none, nationwide. What they do is they're supposed to send you out to community care again. And with the Secretary of VA shutting down the privatization of healthcare,
Right.
you're not going to get the care you need. Within the community care program, they can send you up to 250 miles to see a doctor. They were trying to send me to Galveston. They sent me to Waco. They sent me to buildings that don't exist. I looked on the community care webpage. There's a list of about 5 doctors. They don't even practice maternal fetal medicine. They're teachers. So I remember driving to places, and one was next to an abortion clinic.
So the VAs, these are the VAs that you were traveling to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that
These are the community care doctors that are hooked up, that they outsource us to.
those are outsources, not the VA centers.
Mm-hmm. They have a contract with the VA.
Right.
And so we went to one of them, and there was an abortion clinic right next door to it. And I remember calling my mom. I said, this doesn't look right. I'm not getting out of this car. I can't. I don't know what this is. I did not go to that doctor at all because I was absolutely terrified at what I saw in that parking lot. Now, when I look back at it, that doctor that they sent me to, it's now empty. So I don't know necessarily what's going on there, but I did turn over to Congressman Morgan Luttrell, and I showed him the videos of all the empty buildings, the urgent cares that are on the VA's website. They don't exist. And there's like 5 of them in my area where I live. Mm-hmm. And they're working on it, is all I've heard. But with the baby issue, the problem is with the VA, they outsource you to an OBGYN.
Right.
Most OBGYNs during that time, they wouldn't see high risk. And then it would kick me back to the system. And then if I could find an OBGYN, the OBGYNs would have to send me to maternal fetal medicine. And right now in Houston, you can't get maternal fetal medicine right now if you're a female veteran, because you still would have to have that referral to maternal fetal medicine, and it's not in the network. So when I started investigating all of this and fighting back against the VA, that's when they red flagged me. And if you look into the patient record flag manual,
Right.
the whole point of the Disruptive Behavioral Committee, it's a gun grab.
Right. The question I have about that is that were you red flag? You don't have a behavioral issue at all. So this red flag was probably implemented around 2013, 2014, when there was a situation with all the veterans that were flagged and they couldn't carry a gun and they can't buy a gun. And is this the same timeline?
Yeah. So my first very red flag came because I told a joke to a psychiatrist when my husband checked out of the military, and we came back here to Texas. We lived with my parents until we found our house, and the VA messed up the transfer. And they said that I was divorced. And I looked at my husband who was standing next to me, and I was like, hey, I'm a single lady now. What you going to do about it? Uh-huh. And he didn't necessarily like that. And he put on a red flag because that was disruptive. I was just,
Sarcasm.
It was sarcasm, and
Total military
yeah,
sarcasm.
because that's what we do. If you're in a uncomfortable situation, you can't handle it. It's a coping mechanism.
Right.
But it's not rude. I had a smile on my face, and it's a slight lighten up. But so President Trump came in with that one too. I called Ted Cruz's office, and I worked with my representatives, and they literally said this was malarkey. And he did the White House hotline, which is now owned by the Department of Veteran Affairs again. And they did their investigation, and my red flag was dropped from that time frame. And then when I got pregnant again this time, because I started investigating and I started fighting back of the facts, and they wouldn't have it. The people that they have working in community care are not the greatest people. They don't care about you. I literally had one yell at me, we can send you up to 250 miles. And I'm like, I'm high risk. I'm bleeding. I'm pregnant. And I had multiple issues carrying the baby. And there was no way that what they were asking me to do, I could have physically done. A lot of it was even driving. Driving was an issue, even because I couldn't reach the pedals because of a belly. It even gets worse than that. So when you're red flagged, if you go to any other provider out in town, which I had to do, they will contact the Department of Veteran Affairs. They will notify you or the staff that you are red flagged and that you are disruptive. So it'll change the narrative of your care while you're there, even with civilians. And that's exactly what happens.
Were there police involved or
Yes.
security?
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain that?
So the VA was reached out to by this staff member while I was having the baby, and which I didn't know what sex she was until she was born, and after 16 hours of not seeing her, which was just breaking my heart, she called CPS on me. Now, when you're a mental defect and you can't hold a gun, can you have a child? No, you can't. And they literally showed up at my house 2 weeks later and tries to take my child from me. I did know my rights. I just said nothing and shut the door. I know my Second Amendment rights. I'll say that. But I had amazing, and this is Texas, we have amazing police here. We have a lot of veterans on our force. I had a police officer come up, and he's like, no. And he knows how bad the VA is in here. And I explained the situation to him, and he literally told that CPS officer some choice words and to go check with the hospital. And what's horrible about it is because the VA lied, that civilian nurse had a preconceived notion about me, and it cost her job. That's not okay. So if we look at the PRF manuals and what it says, it stigmatizes veterans. And if you have a veteran that you call pretty much a traitor to this country and stigmatizes that veteran with this patient record flagging manual, what's it going to do with suicide? I'm pretty sure it's going to cause it.
Right. The definition of the words are high risk. It means you're near terrorist, right? So the police get alerted. Every facility, public facility gets alerted. So they're given the wrong definition about high risk, mental defect.
Well, yeah.
And it affects not just you, it affects the family also.
Really?
And then it affects whatever a job you try to apply for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand it. How does that affect you in this situation?
Affected me personally, I have not tried to get a job, but I did try to go to school again. And I noticed that my benefits were completely messed with on the school side. Like, they would just unenroll me for no reason because the VA wouldn't pay, and I had to do almost a full semester of classes in 2 weeks, and it was impossible. We're still fighting that. My husband is even fighting his grades. But this whole mess, my husband lost a job over that, and he has not gotten his job back. We've had to pay $25,000 in lawyer fees because it's double jeopardy. Because when you're red flagged, what happened is that I worked with Senator John Tester. I had the director Menifee came up and say, okay, they looked into it. We're sorry, we totally messed up with you. That's not going to cut it with me. I don't trust you. But because I had no care, the baby took my teeth. Because you didn't have the vitamins, nutrients. And at that time, I couldn't swallow the pills. I couldn't do it. I needed something liquid form or special care. That's why I needed maternal fetal medicine. So I go to dental, and they arrested me there right on the spot. And I spent 36 hours in jail. And they arrested me in front of my kid. You know, something, I fought so hard for her, and I felt like, you know, they were taking her from me, and they were going to do everything they could. At this point, it's just been a constant barrage and attack. And I won federal court. Everything was dismissed. And I had to make a deal with the city of Conroe because I couldn't afford my attorneys. Yes, it was dismissed, even though I won federally, that it was dismissed because they messed up. When I went to Conroe, they still wouldn't accept the federal dismissal. And they said I had to do a behavioral class, which is an entrepreneurship training like Dale Carnegie, Bob Proctor, which I already knew how that stuff. Right. And then they made me do 24 hours community service, which is completely insulting. Even my lawyers felt that it was insulting, but I just could not afford the other $10,000 because it felt like I've already served. I have zippers down my legs from the scars that I've served, and you're telling me that that's what the DA said to me, that I don't know what service is.
Really?
She literally said that to me, and I had a bit of a mental breakdown at that point because it was like it's for nothing. All of this is for nothing. And then with dealing with this whole red flag, being called a terrorist.
Right.
And that has to do, I know, with, I looked into it, my lawyers did, it comes from the Obama administration under Napolitano. Right. And I don't know sometimes if if we serve and then it's not enough, we're just betrayed. That's what goes through my mind all the time. But then I have amazing people around me that remind me that that's just not true. But it is something that I have to wrestle with because I need care. I do know that I still need some mental health, and I can't go and talk about it because I use the VA and they can use my medical records against me. And they can use your mental health records.
So, in your opinion, this red flag situation, it was to separate certain veterans from society.
Yes.
And to isolate them. But a lot of the cases that we've seen in the past, it's not that situation where the red flag was the purpose, what the main purpose was for. Why, in your opinion, why do you think that is?
So the red flag was actually have to do with suicide prevention, and even, our, Secretary of Defense, Austin Lloyd Austin was even trying to push more gun grabs in the DOD, raise the gun ownership to 25. They think that taking away our guns will stop suicide. And that's what their whole premise of these red flag laws is, start soldier, sailor suicide. And it's not working. How about actually fix the issue, right, which is a lot of the bureaucracy and the red tape within the Department of Veteran Affairs. My problem is that there's no due process. Right. I personally would like this whole thing to go away. Okay, we have law enforcement. We have things set up for people that are dangers or the possible Timothy McVeighs. Right. Because that's what this whole program was based off of, is making prevention a reality from James Comey. That's the foundation of the Disruptive Behavioral Committee. And it's all about Timothy McVeigh. It's all about, even I would say, a little bit of right-wing extremism, like the Boogaloo Boys or Proud Boys. And that's something that I'm not. I'm just a sailor that wants to be a mom. Right. So I don't understand why this is coming about. But from other veterans that I've talked to around the country, is that if you offend them or you don't say a certain thing, and in my case, if you say baby and wanting a baby, it's offensive, because we have things in the VA, like during the COVID-19, we had a trans word before we ever addressed military sexual trauma. Right. That makes no sense to me.
There's 4 categories under red flag, mm-hmm, right? Did you know that transgender is one of them? Yes, it is. So my problem is too with this transgender thing, because of what Lizzie Fletcher and the Women's Veteran Task Force and Brownlee did, is during that whole time in that transition, they're pushing the abortion. They were also pushing that crazy narrative of trans at the same time. And that's also in my women's clinic. And that was also involved into my my pregnancy. There are videos out there, I like to think lives of TikTok for that, for finally finding the transition video of the pronouns where men can have babies. But that sets us up in a way where it literally says in the training manual, you're not allowed to call babies babies whatsoever. You're not supposed to say uterus or fetus. And those words can also put you on a disruptive behavior committee. They never tell you why you're on the disruptive behavior committee. They never tell you what happened. And they won't even tell my congressman. And my congressman, his staff, they've asked, they've pleaded. And the letters that I get back are completely gibberish. They never say why I was red flagged. So we don't know. It's obviously it's showing itself. Yes. How many members are on the VA board, if you know, and are they medically qualified to determine disabilities for the military members? I'm not sure over that, on how many that are on the board. To me, they always reshuffle the leadership, so it's very hard to keep track of who's who. Right. And there's always policies and new positions, and there's so much rotating. I'm very familiar what's on the House Committee of Veteran Affairs, but I do say that my congressman is Congressman Morgan Luttrell, and he is on the House Committee of Veteran Affairs. And I am very proud of him, very proud of the things that he's doing, especially when it comes to, helping veterans get their disability, to actually do their paperwork, their disability. Right. They're blaming it on PACT Act. And that's completely untrue. The backlogs happened before PACT Act and started a little bit before the COVID-19. And I was watching the House Committee of Veteran Affairs. I watch it all. Right.
It looks like it was started a lot with the IT programs and the computer implementation process, which has been years, and they still haven't implemented it. And it's looking more and more, as Congressman Rosendale says, like a slush fund.
Do you have any knowledge or on the disabilities or categories that were removed from the VA disability list?
I do know that tinnitus was possibly one of them because of the earplug lawsuit. I do know that with PACT Act, it's very disconstrued on what's covered and what's not covered, and the way that it's set up with the VA, it's more to keep them out, especially because they're not identifying all the factors of all the chemicals and everything that were mixed, and it's causing a big issue. So a lot of things I know with PACT Act are being denied. I can't tell you in person or the reason why.
Are there any good news from the VA at this time for you?
For you, I tell you what, I love the woman in the glasses clinic and Katie. There are some great people that work there.
Katy, Texas. Right.
That's where I go. She's a lovely woman. There are good people that work in the VA. Like I said, I had great care in San Diego. Dr. Chung is still one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Biddleman. I love him to pieces. I have actually a very good doctor in the Katy VA. Dr. Pham, he's my primary care physician, but I can't get to him. Because when you go to the VA, you are immediately, the police are there.
Right.
And then what bothers me with the police, Seth Moulton did a hearing that showed 2,000 out of the 5,000 VA police were not up to standards, and they exposed rape. They exposed horrible, horrible things in that hearing. And that's why VA police now have to wear cameras. They're supposed to start in October. But as the government moves, it's slowly.
Right. So there's VA security, police and VA security, right? Are they under the Homeland Security?
No, they are actually under the executive branch of government, which is very alarming because they are real LEOs. So what bothers me is the lack of education and training. Do they carry out policy or do they carry out Constitution? I've asked several police that question and they can't answer it.
Should probably cross over on jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, they're not allowed to cross over into state jurisdiction, and I am working with my state reps on this issue as well. They can't find the jurisdiction because Texas is very unique. Is that the VA doesn't own any property here. And if they don't own any property, they come under the Attorney General's office in that lease. So are they under the Texas Bill of Rights? And that's a question that we're asking right now up in Austin.
Right. What's in the future for you, and what is your goal?
Yeah. My goal in the VA is to give veterans due process. That's my goal. My goal would be, another goal is definitely get this man out of my clinic. It's very uncomfortable to have a man in my clinic. I don't go to my clinic anymore because of this. And it's not okay that they can say man can have babies. And just get this hogwash out, the diversity. I'm Japanese American, and that's another thing that I do have in my favor. But what about if there's a white girl next to me? How is she less deserving than me? That needs to go away. That is just fair treatment for all. That's a thing that needs to happen. But definitely get the trans stuff get the abortion out of the VA. The abortion issue, I know that the state of Texas is actually working on because of those leases. So I'm waiting to hear back on that. It's just pretty much there's multiple issues here, but just get it all out. Let's put our sailors, soldiers, and Marines first. Let's put their care first. and, get rid of this hopeless red tape.
Right. So are you employed right now, or is it because of the red flag you can't?
I am not employed. I'm actually waiting for the completion of the rest of my surgeries. I have been out of the military for 10 years. I still have treatments that I need to do. I still need knee surgeries. I still need hip surgeries. The whole plan was to have the baby so I could have my hip surgery. And that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
All right. Do you have anything to add or anything that you want to share with us? Anything we missed?
No, I think also my personal next step for me is I will be going after, since everything's dismissed, I am going to go after the Department of Veteran Affairs, try to find attorneys. Most attorneys won't do something like this. And they're just way too expensive to fight 2 court cases on both fronts for almost 2 years cost me $25,000, and I'm on a limited income. So right now I'm still recovering from that.
Do you have a 501c3 or nonprofit?
No, there's, I don't know how to do any of that. I've reached out to several profits, and they don't want to do with much of this. I spoke with Benjamin Krause, who is, if you look up VA red flag laws, you're going to see his name all over it. And he's an attorney. And he said even finding an attorney to fight this is going to be rough. There really aren't any there because of the way tort claims work.
Right. You get more money by helping veterans get their benefits, but not fight for the benefits.
Well, that's a whole different subject to me. It looks like my thing is I'll give you an example. Wounded Warrior Project.
Right.
Back in the day, I'm pretty sure that they got in trouble with a big, huge scandal of the luxury vacations, piggyback on veterans. And I do have a problem with the finances of it. People give billions of dollars, billions, every year to help veterans. It's not getting better. You have the VA just got funded again for $3.1 billion. And you're looking at the economy right now, and American people are going to figure that out soon. We're wasting all of this money, plus these tax dollars, plus donating, and things aren't getting better. And that's something that does bother me. That's why I'm a little leery of 501c3s. You have all of them launch, and you know this, you have buddies that are veterans like I do. They all start these charities, and then they go nowhere. And that's because we need to go to the root of the issue. We need to get Congress to wake up. We need the Senate to wake up and stop killing our veterans and stop overburdening the American people with saving veterans. But what worries me is that some of these charities probably will fight back, because if we actually fix the issues, they'd probably go out of business.
Right.
So that's my stance on it. Don't know if it's a correct one or PC, but that's just what I've seen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Texas Insider. You have a great day.